Hey guys, it's the end of the decade in a couple of days. At TechCabal, we asked ourselves, what are the 10 companies that have done the most to impact the African tech scene? Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen lots of activities. So we did some research, we asked your opinions, and we've come up with a list. Now, mind you, this is not a ranked list, but the essential thing we are looking out for is the impact these companies have had within the decade. All right, let's have it.
Andela. Including Andela on this list was one of the easiest decisions we had to make. And that's pretty obvious. Andela introduced African talent on a global stage. They trained junior developers and senior developers and made them available to a lot of international companies. So when Andela was starting out, that was what they promised, and it's fair to say they've delivered. In September 2019, Andela laid off 420 developers across Nigeria, Kenya, and Uganda. And this was because they said there was no demand for junior developers. And this led to a lot of arguments in the office here that what is Andela now? Is it an HR company or an edtech company? But that's also been slightly facetious. Andela has had a massive impact on the African technology scene. A lot of people who went through Andela have gone on to establish their own companies or play strategic roles in a lot of African companies. So it's very difficult to talk about African technology in the past decade and not talk about the massive impact that Andela has had.
Safaricom is a big company in its own right, but in the last decade, Safaricom has come to be defined by its success with M-Pesa, the mobile money banking system in East Africa. Now in 7 countries, M-Pesa has moved the conversation about financial inclusion to a whole different level. In fact, it's the biggest mobile money service in the whole world. So you can take loans, you can deposit money. It is branchless banking at its best. Safaricom pioneered the use of USSD in mobile money transfers. They have M-Pesa now. So the obvious question is, what else do they have up their sleeves for the next decade?
Interswitch. What comes to your mind when you hear Interswitch? Legendary, silent giants, consistency. Well, there are these and more really. Interswitch has grown from a transaction switching company to an African unicorn of digital payments, electronic transactions, and even more recently, lifestyle services. Now, there are a number of new African companies that are looking to take ownership of the payment space in Africa, but it's good to see that Interswitch has stayed at the top of their game for the past 19 years. It's also important to note that last month, Visa and Interswitch entered into a very strategic partnership that saw Visa acquiring 20% shares of the company for $200 million. The house that Michel Elewe built is going public soon, so do look out for their IPOs next year.
What we're hearing is that Flota represents the future of payments in Africa, and it's kind of interesting. The company emerged in 2016 and it positioned itself as an infrastructure builder, a sort of payment as a service company, helping them to connect to international payment gateways and to process transactions in over 150 currencies. This is something that startups have been looking for a long time. Small and medium-sized businesses are looking for a way that they can transact internationally without the restrictions that Nigeria is already giving them. So FlotaWave has provided that answer and it has solved that problem. And over the last couple of years, it has processed billions of dollars on transactions for small and medium-sized companies. It's not a fluff stuff, and it's something that has helped FlotaWave to attain an international reputation, that has helped them to get into programs like the Y Combinator, and that has helped them to increase their international presence, that has helped them to gain international traction. And this is why FlotaWave is the future of payment in Africa.
Lightbank is easily one of the most impactful private companies on the continent. We've seen Temigua take this passion to a proper business. They started from moving blood to moving oxygen, and now they're piloting drones in Ethiopia. So here's what makes Lightbank even more interesting: the audacity and boldness of the founder. Lightbank is competing in an industry that is dominated by a better funded Silicon Valley company. So Lightbank recently won the Jack Ma Inaugural Africa Prize, which just shows everybody why it's a company to watch out for.
When we wanted to include Jumia in this list, there were a lot of questions. First is the fact that Jumia has been in the news a lot for a lot of bad stuff recently. They just closed in Tanzania, they just closed in Cameroon, Late in 2019, they also closed their vertical Jumia Travel. So everything suggests that Jumia is struggling. But if you look at it differently, it might just say that Jumia is now aggressively focusing on its businesses that are profitable and on countries that are profitable. Jumia says that in 5 years, it will hit a profit. If they do, and when they do, they would have been able to prove one thing. They would have been able to prove that e-commerce is possible and scalable in Africa. They have given belief to companies like Conga that e-commerce is something that could work in Africa. So even if they spend billions of dollars to get there, when they get there, when they create the African e-commerce behemoth, they would have achieved something really big.
CCHub. Why do I get the easy ones? CCHub was also one of the easier ones for us to agree on to put on this list. And the reason is very obvious. We don't think about CCHub in the way we think of regular companies. CCHub is a hub, as the name suggests, that brings a lot of startups together at their earlier stages. Think about non-profits and profit organizations like Budget, like Mamalet, like Lifebank. CCHub was where a lot of these companies got their start. And another reason for CCHub's inclusion on this list is the fact that they are truly Pan-African. Not long ago, they bought Kenya's iHub, which is a regional competitor, and the fact that they were able to buy that and to spread their wings across Africa means they are doing something incredibly important. And the fact that they opened a design lab in Kigali, Rwanda, means that they are also thinking of creating a space for African design. Whatever happens in African technology over the next decade, it will be because of a lot of work that CCHub has put in place in this past decade. And they are also very involved in policy making across African technology. That's why CCHub is on this list.
Main one, about powering connectivity, is there a bigger breakout star this decade than Funke Obeke's Main One? In the last decade, Main One's submarine cables and data centers across mainland West Africa has continued to improve internet access and affordability, and has helped to power businesses, small and medium scale businesses, governments, internet service providers, as well as media businesses like ours. So they have gone from Nigeria and have launched their infrastructure in Senegal, in Ghana, and more recently in Cote d'Ivoire, and have shown over the years that they have the ability to handle the pressures of Africa's fast-growing ICT sector.
Wari is a Senegalese digital financial services provider. Wari has operating licenses in 11 African countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, Mozambique, and a number of others. So Wari has partnership with MasterCard and World Remit. If you think about the challenge of financial inclusion in Africa, it basically tells you why Wari is an important company. And also remittances are a huge deal in Africa. Wari is one of the companies enabling remittances. Fintechs always talk about financial inclusion. There is a Wari roadmap that's proven successful since 2008. That's over a decade that these companies can look at to play from.
I grew up in Lagos where transportation is pretty chaotic. There are buses, there are bikes that help you to move faster and help you to move, better. But unfortunately, the cost is too much. It's always going to be cheaper if you could get other people to join you on the ride and you can get to your destination at the cheaper rates. Yeah, that's how it works. And unfortunately, not a lot of options are available. But you have Swivel. Swivel works like this in Egypt. It helps you to find other people and get into vehicles that will take you to a destination that you're all heading to. Swivel's bus solution is something that can be scaled across Africa, where buses are also very popular as a means of transportation. I mean, it's everywhere. And it's something that we should be looking forward to over the next decade.
There it is, our 10 defining African tech companies of the decade. What do you think? Who do you think should have made the list? And why do you think they should have made the list? Let us know in the comments and in the replies, all right? See you in the next decade. Au revoir.
And the fact that why? What's going on?
Tech giants.
Okay, yeah, I remember, guys.
Can you pause it? Let me just restart it. Is this how you guys have been doing it all this while?